Hi, my name is Harry Osborne and I'm from the 23rd cohort at the Information Lab. In this video I'm going to explain how to create dynamic moving average lines inside Tableau. Moving average lines reduce the impact of outliers and high fluctuating measures in data, allowing a smoother average to be shown over time. By making the time taken into account dynamic, the user then has more options when calculating the average of their data within Tableau. Let's move over to Tableau and get started. Here's an example of the end product we're looking for. In orange, you can see the sum of sales over various weeks of order date, seen down here at the bottom of the chart. The moving average line is the line in blue, where you are able to decide the weeks before and after the date in consideration that will be taken into account when calculating the moving average. For example, if I'm to put the moving average before date up to 4, and the after date up to 4 as well, you will see the average line beginning to smooth and flatten as more weeks are taken into consideration when making the average in Tableau. The moving average is calculated using the week in question at a specific point, plus the numbers of weeks selected before and after. So for this example, the 4 weeks before and the 4 weeks after are being taken into consideration, plus the current week, equaling 9 total weeks for the moving average. Using moving averages allows the data to be smoothed and reduces the impact of outliers, particularly when considering high fluctuating measures such as things like stock prices. Now I'll begin to show you how I made this chart. I'm using the standard superstore data that can be found inside of Tableau, and I've hidden all the fields that are not relevant to this analysis on the left hand side. First, I'll bring the continuous week of order date onto the columns. I'm going to do this by right-clicking and dragging order date and selecting week here at the bottom in green. This will bring in continuous week of order date. Next, I'm going to bring sales onto the rows. Now we have a line chart showing the sum of sales over every week of our order date in the dataset. Next, we will create our moving calculation for the moving average, and this is done through a table calculation in the window. I'm going to click on the caret of sum of sales and select Add Table Calculation. This brings in a drop down where I'll select in the top in calculation type Moving Calculation. In here I'm going to select, instead of sum previous to next 0, I'm going to change the sum to an average and select previous values of 2 and next values of 1. This means that the moving calculation of the average will take into account the previous 2 values, so the previous 2 weeks, and 1 week in the future, so 1 next value. It will also use the current value of the week in question. I will now click X on this, and you can see in the background that the overall data has smoothed out, given that these weeks are being taken into consideration when calculating the average. I will now explain in some more depth how the moving average is calculated and how we will make it dynamic. By holding down Control and dragging sum of sales across, I can now save this moving average calculation inside the workbook. I will call this moving average. By editing this calculation, you can see how the moving average is calculated inside Tableau. It uses the window average of sum of sales. So the average of all the values in the window for sum of sales, the field we dragged in originally, using the previous 2 weeks, hence -2, and 1 week in the future, so 1. This is where we will input our dynamic parameters to allow user customization to the number of weeks taken into account. Next, creating 2 parameters is what must be done. So I'm going to open up the first of my 2, week before date. In here, change the data type to integer and choose the allowable values to be a range. You can make this range as many weeks as you like. I have chosen 0 to 52 just to include those in a year, with a step size of 1. This will allow the user to choose any number of weeks from 0 to 52 to be input into the moving average equation that I will show you later. Weeks after date is the exact same, except I've changed the name. This is just a duplication of the weeks before date field with all the exact same settings within. If I now head back into my moving average calculation, I will show you where to input your parameters. We want the user to be able to customize the numbers that appear in these two sections so they aren't rigid as -2 and 1. So I'm going to remove 2 and instead type in weeks before date. This now means that that parameter replaces the number and will be programmable by the user. Similarly, I'm going to delete the number 1 and input weeks after date. And hit OK. Now, if I click to show both of these parameters, you will see that by moving the selection around, the line will change as more or fewer weeks are taken into consideration. The last thing to do is bring sum of sales back onto the view, click the caret and select dual axis, synchronize my axes, and hide the axis on the right. Now you have a view with the sum of sales in orange, the moving average in blue, and the ability to customize how many weeks are taken into consideration. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you now feel more confident in building moving averages inside of Tableau. If you found this video helpful, click the thumbnail at the top to watch our latest video, or click the thumbnail at the bottom to watch my colleague's video on more parameter actions.